We're back, and we have another great episode here talking about travel. It's hard to stay away for too long. My guest today is Melissa Rodway. She is a fellow Canadian. In fact, we grew up in towns that are pretty close to each other. You may know that I'm from Peterborough, Ontario, and Melissa is from Port Perry, which is about halfway between Peterborough and Toronto. It's roughly 40 minutes away. And that was a total coincidence. We didn't know that until we met, but it's fun to have that in common and share our travel stories. Now, with Melissa in particular, these travel stories have manifested as a book. She has a book that came out this year, The People You Meet, Luxury, Leeches, Love, and Lao-Lao, with a host of interesting characters in Southeast Asia. The book started as a collection of emails that she wrote to friends and family during a trip, a roughly 4-month trip with her partner at the time in 2010 to Southeast Asia. Then they went to Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and ended up in China before she came home back to Canada. So she had all these emails really telling the stories of the people that she met, of course, the places they visited, the adventures, the experience of really being there on the ground at that point of time. And this is where it gets quite interesting because, I mean, the email sat in her inbox for all those years, and it wasn't until the last couple of years that she put the book together, and it came out in 2025. So what brought her to releasing these stories at this point in time, and how did that feel? The big question of what we'll explore today. And I can relate because I've done an around the world trip as well and wrote some things, same idea really, a lot of emails and just kind of little bits and pieces. Well, I haven't published them into a book, and a lot of this time I've been thinking, you know, what's the point? It's kind of too long. It was well over 10 years ago at this point. It's in the past. I don't want to kind of live in the past and revisit that. Melissa really inspires me, and hopefully you, if you're in a similar position, you know, similar thing where maybe you've done a lot of travels, you've done some writing, and you feel like you have permission to still share those stories. You can kind of bring that trip and those experiences back to life. It's really quite inspiring. So we chat about that. And you'll get to witness the unlocking of another multipotentialite. Melissa is someone who has absolutely been a multipotentialite, whether she realized it or not. She probably did. By hearing and learning about the term here with me live on the show, it's always fun to do. So we get into that and the arc, the weave of her life, her career, and the different things that she's done, which certainly fit the mold. So she's right at home here on the Multipod and with all of us. And I hope you enjoy her stories, and I highly recommend checking out her book. All right, welcome back, everybody. So I'm joined by Melissa Rodway, who's a fellow Canadian. We just learned that we grew up in cities and small towns like roughly 45 minutes apart.
Absolutely.
In Ontario. Melissa's here to talk about her book, which we're very excited about, and exploring multipotentiality. And kind of it starts with, as I often begin on the show, is, well, what's your experience with multipotentiality? And this may be something that's brand new, or maybe something that you've thought about, of course, for years. But we chatted a little bit here just before, and, you know, framing it about how we kind of go through our life and pursue our interests and hobbies and careers and all kinds of things we want to do. When you were kind of finishing school, getting to university, or just into your 20s, like, did you have a clear sense of what you wanted to do, or is it just kind of follow your nose?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Where were you back then? No, I am still struggling in that department. I will be totally honest. So I was somebody who I feel like when I was young, I could do a lot of things. I could write. I loved, writing skits. I loved writing stories. I loved getting up in front of people and doing all these things. But I think that nobody tells you when you're a young person to pay attention when the light goes off in your body about what speaks to you, and you think that everybody feels like you do and that it's not special. And so I didn't really understand to follow that path. And I really wish someone had told me that. And so for me, I really didn't know. I mean, I think I knew, but I also, one person will say something about, I would say, I think I might go into journalism, or maybe I'm interested in TV or radio. But when you're so young, sometimes it can take just one person who has a big role in your life to say
Mm.
something negative, and you're like, oh, what was I thinking? I shouldn't do that. So that was kind of what happened to me. And I think there was another thing that I felt. I think things have changed. Like, I think nowadays we're seeing, and maybe it's because of technology and the internet, etc., but we're seeing that you can blend different things together now. But I feel I'm 50, so I feel like back in the day, you were taught to choose one thing.
Yes.
And for me, I'm like, well, if I choose one thing, and I don't know what that's going to be, because there's lots of things that interest me, and not just creatively. Also, I was very interested in human behavior and the way people think and feel. So I easily could have gone down that road too, in psychology or whatever it was going to be. But I feel like back then, you were really put into a box. So it's like, this is it. You've got to choose this. And we
Yeah.
didn't have this mindset that you could incorporate lots of your creativity and strengths and talents, and it could take you in different ways. So I felt, if I choose this one thing, that's the end of everything else.
Yes.
And that has taken me a long time and I still struggle with that. I'm still like, if I do this, then when's the time to do all these other things? And I think, yeah, we're now seeing that actually all of these things are possible and they can all interplay with each other. But that was not the message back in the day. And you go to
Mm.
school so young. I mean, now
Yeah.
it's younger even still. And in my day, I took a year off. I went to Jasper, and we can talk about our connection there. But, you're so young. Like, how do you, and I think as you get older, you actually feel younger. But when you're in your 20s and your late teens, there's this pressure to like know and to have it all figured out. And that's a crime. I
Mm.
think, really, like, how does anybody know? And I'm still figuring it out as we go. So
Yeah.
there's your
Yeah.
long-winded answer.
That was great. That's classic multipotentiality. That's great.
Is there
I'm glad you're on the
therapy
show.
or for that, for multipotentiality?
Well, it's a good question. If there's like a support, maybe, or for us, it's community, and it's finding like-minded people. Because that's just it. Because and lots of us are out there, and you could maybe argue that more people are "quote unquote" multi-potentialites and stuff than we realize, or whatever it is. But it's recognizing that they are out there, and that people share that view and that outlook on life, and that so many of the people that I come across to come on the show, it's like, well, nobody really gets me. And I don't find anyone else who just understands, because I'm always getting questions. People say, well, why do you always change your job? And why did you keep going back to school and all this stuff? And I mean, I know I'm hypothetically, but I know why I do that, because I want to try different things. And I don't want to have to make that choice when I'm 19 years old or something. So just finding other people who get it, who
Yeah.
just get it. It's such a relief.
It
Yeah.
is, and yeah, it's so true, that because there are still so many people that don't get it, and then you feel like there's something wrong, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it is important.
That's a common theme.
I
Yeah.
love that this is your theme. It's awesome.
Yeah, and what's great, kind of true to form, is that we start with this theme, and then we can talk about anything. Like, I've talked
Yeah,
about quantum computing on this show, and
but we won't be talking about that
no, but a common theme for sure that comes up is travel, and so this is really exciting because I was reading your book, so I'll of course put all the links in the notes. But The People You Meet is your travel memoir. And this talks about your backpacking trip through Southeast Asia back in 2010, over 4 months. So one thing that's really interesting just to me is that I did the exact same thing 2 years later. In the reverse way, actually. My wife and I, we started actually in Malaysia, and then basically we went up through Thailand. We went to Cambodia, into Laos, back to northern Thailand, and then carried on to India. But a lot of the same places. So I'm reading about, you were in Phuket and Koh Samui, and then up to Ayutthaya, and of course Siem Reap and Phnom Penh, and up in Luang Prabang in northern Laos. And I was going to tell you this: we stayed in that same little village. I had to pull up the name again. When you're up north of Luang Prabang and in northern Laos, and you get to that. I mean, relatively speaking, a bit of a larger village, Nong Khao.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then you take another boat up the river to where I've got it here, Muang Nhoi. Wang Yoi.
Yes.
Yes.
Very nice. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
That
Oh,
same little
wow.
village, and like you kind of pull yourself off the longboat, right, and up that
Yeah.
steep hill into that little village, and like in the middle of nowhere, and there's a few hundred people around, and it's just so idyllic. It was
Isn't it?
amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. We are
So it's
living
cool.
the same life. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and, hopefully there's people who've done similar routes and they can relate. A lot of people they make it to places like Chiang Mai and
Yeah.
Bangkok, of course. Too.
Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, there's lots we can talk about, but one thing that really inspires me is the fact that your book just came out, earlier this year, right, 4 or 5 months ago, kind of thing. But these are stories from 2010. So I've often said to myself, well, I wrote some things then. I wrote some emails and little blog, kind of travel log type things. I never really published them. But then I've said to myself for years since, well, it's in the past. It's too long ago. It's not relevant anymore. Like if I'd published it in the moment, it would make sense, but it's too late. It feels like it's too late. I'm really inspired that you went and did this because it's not too late. You can always tell those stories. What inspired you to do this now, to publish the book now and those stories, 15 years later?
Great question. Because I battled for several years. I mean, obviously, 15 years is quite a long time. So there were moments when I was quite gung ho about making this into a book, and then I put it on the back burner. Um, I think what happened is, I think it was always there. It was kind of always gnawing at me. And I went through exactly what you said, like, oh, it was too long ago. Who cares? It's done. But it was, I don't know, when I had done it, I mean, on this trip that I was on, I was with someone who had a purpose. He was meeting
That's right.
people in luxury travel. He was going to business meetings. We were going on site inspections of luxury places. And I will say 90% was backpacking, as you read, 10% was luxury.
Yeah.
But when you're with somebody who has an agenda, it's very different to be the person who's tagging along. And if you're somebody like what we were talking, what is the term again? The what?
Multipotentiality.
Yes, there you are.
Yes.
Then you have a different way of being in the world, And I started getting cagey on that trip. And so I started creating these stories in my head on long buses and train rides. And then once a week, I would send these stories out through email in like via internet cafes or, a lobby in a hotel. And I think it was the response that people loved it and they started emailing it to their friends and there was a snowball effect. And if I had been smart, Ted, it was 2010, I would have had a blog and maybe
Right.
I'd be in a different position right now. But I think the thing about putting it out 15 years later, there's many elements to this. One is that, yes, it was always sort of sitting there and I knew I had to do something with it. And I had to decide, do I do it or do I say goodbye, it's done? But there was something about it. And I think that you change, like I didn't want to change it because I was 35 at the time. I'm 50 now, and I didn't want to have a different lens. I wanted that story to be that person, who that person was at 35. I'm not that much different, to be honest. But I think what was cool going back into it when I really committed to it was that you need time to like marinate in an experience. And I have a very good memory. So a lot of the thing, like that story, just, I don't know. I think even now I'm still like processing it. And I think now was the time to like tell the story.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things, like, it's like when you feel like you can write and you can tell a story and something is sitting there, it has to come out. And if I had never done it, it would have bothered me till the day that I died. And last year, so 2 years ago in 2023, I took a year off and did some traveling. Then I came back from that and I, out of the blue, took a stand-up comedy course. So I did like a stand-up set. And then after that, I was like, now I'm going to put this book out. So it's like, I think that both of those things, taking a year off at 48 and then throwing myself into like the Dragon's Den or the Lion's Den with stand up, then pushed me to go, you know what, here we go. Like I'm dusting off my creativity and I'm going to go for it. And that's sort of how we ended up here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like, I think as much as anything, a project that you do for yourself is kind of for the sake of it as an achievement, you know? It's
Yes,
like writing a song or just doing something creative. And I mean, hopefully people have read the book. It's got great reviews and all that. But, and if anything, it's one of those, a lot of multipotentialites do this, you know? It's not about money. It's not about anything else. It's just about doing the thing for the sake of the thing and the
yes,
satisfaction of doing that.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it helped, like it helped to know that people in the past had responded well to it. And I did have a friend who was in editing, who used to be like the editor of Canadian Living, and I sent it to him and I said, I have faith in you. You tell me, is it worth it, or will I make a fool of myself? And he said, go for it. And that was all that I needed. And I think, yeah, you do it for yourself, but I was like, I feel like this is a story that kind of needs to be told. And going back to what you said, it's like, even though it was 15 years ago, I bet a lot of the things have not changed in that part of some of them,
Yeah.
certainly,
I wonder that.
but some
Yeah.
of it, I bet I have a feeling some things are quite similar.
Yeah. That's
Who knows,
interesting.
right? Who knows?
I often wonder that. I mean, our trip was 2012, so, 13, almost coming up on 14 years ago. And I wonder, like, how similar are prices and just the impact of culture, maybe, or
Yeah,
are those quiet kind of remote villages the same? You'd kind of think so. I mean, they're timeless in a way, but I don't know.
who
I mean,
knows?
you don't ever know by going, and it's as always, it's like a moment in time that's kind of frozen in our mind when we were there. We just
Yeah,
don't need to capture it in turn. 15 years later, it really is like a snapshot in time.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
that's neat.
Yeah. It was also a lot of work, like
Yeah.
those were lengthy emails I sent home, and I'm like, I'm not letting this go to waste.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Did you have to edit them a lot then?
Yes.
Yeah.
For many reasons. One is that the things that we said in 2010, you cannot say without running severe risk of being canceled. And so in that way, I'm quite glad that I didn't have a proper blog back then, because I might have run into some trouble. Um, and yes, another thing that's interesting about that is that when you write, I think sometimes you see things in your head and you think you've done them justice. And when my editor friend read it, he's like, we need more, 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 more. And so it kind of had to make me really go back and put myself back into those places, the smells, the sights, the
Okay.
chaos, you know?
Yeah.
So that was also really interesting, because I think that we don't always realize, like, we think we've captured it and then someone's like, no, I need more details. So yeah, I did have to edit them.
So and then you added to the stories too, like
I
the
had
versions you
added a
see.
little bit
Yeah.
because I think that's another reason I'm glad I didn't do it in the moment, because I think when you're traveling, you're often in a survival mode, as you know, and you're getting out just like what's happening in that time, and there's a lot happening to you. And also sometimes you only have an hour in an internet cafe. So
Yes.
I think that even having this time to, like, again, as I say, marinate in it, I had the time to kind of like go back in time and think about how it was, how I felt, whatever. And I think that actually made the story better. But the
Mm-hmm.
email, the book itself, yes, is entirely based on what was happening right then and there. But I certainly, yes, went back and made the grass a little bit greener in places, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's just it. It's in the context of putting it in a book and proper chapters and the whole deal and kind of filling out those details. That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you know what else is interesting, Ted, is that also, like, I did not realize some of the themes that have come out of this. Like, in the moment, you're just writing it. This is how I feel. This is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. But it's like analyzing it 15 years later, I
Mm.
realized that in that trip and in that book, I learned about travel ego. I learned about travel
Yeah.
fatigue. I learned about listening to yourself. And I did not know that I was learning any of that 15
Mm.
years ago. I just learned it this year in writing this story
That's
and
interesting.
editing this story and talking to people like you on podcasts, that this is what has come out of it. And that was unexpected. I did not know that there were still lessons to be learned from that part of my
Mm.
life, like 15 years later.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask you, I mean, I've been to your website and, there's clearly other travels there and there's pictures from that. But I mean, have you done, what's the postscript maybe to that trip in the book, the stories in the book? Like, have you done other travels like that since? Was that in itself kind of a real unique travel experience from all the things you've done, or have you done a lot of stuff like that since?
I've done lots of stuff since, but my relationship situation is no longer the same. We won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't read the book,
Yeah.
but I'm not shy in saying that those opportunities for luxury travel are no longer. Um, what has changed since is that while I still love to travel for the sake of travel, my priorities have changed. I'm more into active travel, so hiking trips, cycling trips, things like that. And yeah, I think I travel with purpose, maybe a little bit more. I drink a lot less on trips now than I
Mm-hmm.
ever used to. That was shocking actually when I was editing. I was like, whoa, we, we were having a pretty good time and I just
Yeah.
cannot do that anymore. Um, so yes, the quest for always kind of authentic travel and
Yeah.
meeting people and locals, etc. That's I think that's if you're a traveler, that's who you are. That doesn't go away, you know? But I think I have a different sort of goal now when I go away, for sure.
Right. Interesting. Well, I want to ask you a couple questions about the experience of the book, putting the book together, because it was self-published, right?
Yes. Mm.
How's that played out? Do you recommend that? Was it a good way to go about it? And I asked because it has come up a lot on this show, and most people are curious about that. I've thought about publishing a book and self-publishing, so we always like to kind of explore that a bit. What was it like for you?
It's hard.
Yeah,
However, I did it because I didn't want to wait for, it was a 15-year process. I didn't want to wait 10 more years for a
yeah,
publisher to say yes, because that's the reality. I had sent a manuscript of it to a couple of different publishers, and one guy, I met him because I had a radio show and I had met him through that. And he said, it's awesome, it's well done, but no one will publish this in Canada. No one wants to read this in Canada. And I was like, well, how? It's just so weird, right?
what's
When
that based
someone's
on?
like so well written, it's a great story, it's so funny, but
Yeah,
nobody will want this. And I was
ouch.
just like, I'm not going to go through that. Why would I do that? In today's day, you can do anything, right? You can start a podcast, you can start a bit, you can do anything. So I'm like, forget it. I'm doing it myself. So, you have to be very disciplined. You're setting your own deadlines. There's nobody going, Melissa, I need these number of chapters. It's you going, I'm going to dedicate a very beautiful, sunny July Saturday to being stuck in my basement editing this story. So that part's hard. You do have to make sacrifices for that, and you have to be dedicated. And then I did hire somebody in the US to help me, with like the insides of the book, like the bleeds, the margins, the
Oh, okay.
whatever. I'm not interested in trim sizes or file size. I don't want to do that. I want to write. So that was helpful. And she helped me like get it sorted out with Amazon, the dreaded Amazon. But that's how
Yeah,
the
right.
route. That was the easy road for me. I would say it's the after parts, like the selling, the marketing. No one's helping you with any of this. So that part it's all of it is a learning curve, but you have the freedom, like it's yours, you're doing what you have to do. But then I've met other people because I've been going to book fairs for the last few months. And I don't know that the traditional route is that helpful anymore anyway. I've met people who have a publisher and they are also self-marketing, self-promoting. So that whole world, I think, is changing drastically. But I would encourage it if you want it to get done. If you want to go the traditional route, you could be waiting again for many years. And who's got time for that?
Yeah, yeah, that's just it. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like even if you had a publisher and stuff, this day and age, you'd probably end up doing so much of the work yourself, and as you say, the promotion and stuff. Like, in a way, you might as well just do it yourself. Is it
Yeah.
cost effective to a point? Or?
I think so because you're gonna like I did look into some of these other publishing companies and you're forking over a lot of money to get this done. Like I'm also spending a lot of money in the promotion and the whatever, but I didn't want to give somebody thousands of dollars to do this. So I've already, so there's pros and cons, and I am certainly no expert, and I made a lot of mistakes, but it is what it is. And the other thing too, it's like, I think it's a very old school way of thinking to decide to go with going, well, I'm going to let this publisher tell me if I'm good or not. Well,
But yeah,
that's very subjective. And it
yeah,
was just like this guy saying, this is great, but no one will want it. It's like, well, how do you know? So I think we're also at a point where it's like, you've got to believe in what you've done and that it's good. And even if nobody wants to read it, who cares? You did it, and you have to be solid in why you've done it. But I'm not at a point where I'm going to let someone decide for me whether it gets released or not. I don't think that
yeah.
that's right.
That's great. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Let's take control of our projects, of our creative projects. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so the second thing I was wondering then, since the book came out, a few months ago, what kind of connections have you made as a result of doing this project? People you've met and opportunities maybe, or just great stories, connections. Like, what's that been like?
Yeah, I love that question because it's really funny when you put this out, something like this, because in your head, I mean, first of all, I only did it for myself. So I didn't know who would read it. But when you're writing a travel story, you think, oh, it's going to be travelers and people who are adventurous. That will be
Yeah,
my market. That is not the market for this book, it seems.
interesting.
Certainly people like you who've been there, done that. It's probably entertaining and it resonates. But there's also people that are like, well, I've already been there. I don't need to read this. Like, why would I read that? There's a lot of like travel ego out there. That's a whole other
Yes.
conversation. But what has been interesting is the people that I've met. I've been to like several book fairs and farmers markets all over, like trying to sell this thing. And people who have come to find me that have read it, I did not see it coming. And like mainly women, but some men as well. But I think it's more the honesty, because it's a pretty honest book. It's pretty vulnerable. I'm not really hiding about who I am and the good and bad of me. And I think it's given people a space to feel honest maybe and vulnerable. And I've had 35-year-old women come up to me and say, you put exactly on the page how I'm feeling, and none of my friends are like me and they're all getting married and having babies, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
So there's some of that. I think it's also giving, like, I'm a normal person. I have a regular job. I do like carve adventure around a regular 9 to 5 job. And I obviously pursue like things like radio and writing and whatever, but I'm very normal. And I think it was also that because, well, I'm not that normal, but I'm normal. Um,
It's
but I think
relative.
it's also like I'm relatable because I think sometimes if you haven't done a lot of things that like maybe seem, exotic to some people, you feel like it's unreachable. You feel like, oh, they're special. These are the people that do those
Mm,
things.
yes.
And I'm very human. So I think it's also that where people are like, okay. And it's also just have some courage or inspiration to do what you need to do. It doesn't need to look like what I'm doing. But I think there's something in that too, where people feel inspired a little bit to like find their own truth or adventure and whatever that looks like. Who cares what it looks like as long as you're
Yeah.
tapping
Yeah.
into it. So this is sort of what's coming back to me. And obviously, people are just like, oh my God, I can escape into this book for a weekend and not pay attention to my life. I think there's a lot of escapism here as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's been fascinating. It's
Yeah.
in quite fun connections, actually. I love that part.
That's cool. Yeah. That's that journey that happens. We put things out there and you can never predict what's going to happen. You just see where it takes you. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's awesome.
Same
Yeah.
with doing a podcast. So you've had a podcast where it's interesting. It was a radio show.
Yeah.
But it's also basically a podcast because people can find it, on all the apps and all the things. So is that still on the agenda to do more podcasting, hosting? Because I know you're doing a lot of guesting, which is fun. What's your kind of experience or perspective now being more of a guest on the other side of the chair, the other side of the microphone the last little while?
So interesting. So the story to back that up is when I came back from that trip in 2010, I had no money, as I'm sure you can relate. And I went back to school to finish my degree because there's a whole other story there. And then I stumbled upon the campus radio station at the University of Toronto. So I worked at that radio station for quite a while. And then I created a travel show. And the point of that was to travel through other people because I just
Yeah.
couldn't for many years because I had
Yeah.
$0. Created a really interesting community and I absolutely loved it. And interestingly enough, when I started that show, my station manager was like, "Oh, Melissa, nobody wants to hear anyone talk for an hour." Well, lo and behold, now look at the world of podcasting. Like, it's just another thing, right? Where one voice is saying, no, 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 this is not the way. And it's like, oh, well, look what's happened. Like, only a few years later, 1 hour
Yeah.
podcasts are everywhere. Anyway, yes. And then it kind of morphed into from a radio show into a podcast. But being on the other side is very interesting because when I started my show, there was like AI wasn't really around.
Right.
So I was killing myself to find guests. I was going down
Yeah.
the rabbit hole. It was a huge part of the job. Whereas now there's all these platforms that, yeah, I'm not, like, that's how I found you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is like, I did a lot of work. I did tons of research and like, I find that the tables, like, it's not like that anymore. And you read my book and you're a bit of an anomaly, I'm going to tell you, because a lot of I feel like now everyone's like, everyone can have a podcast. And so some of them are like, why don't you send me the questions that I'm going to ask you? I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's lazy.
And it's
and
not
boring too.
uncommon. Yes. And so sometimes I show up and there's no research done. There's nothing because I think we're in this world now where it's like we can all just do anything. So being on the other side is like quite fascinating. And meeting people like you is rare. So I'm having a great time doing it. But it's very different than when I was on the other side.
Yeah,
so,
that's interesting.
Isn't it?
It kind of reminds me, and this comes through in the book too, and I experienced this as well, that we're in a generation, of course, before the internet and after the internet. And not just to travel, but, when we were kids, like, none of this stuff existed. And obviously kids these days, right, that's all they've ever known is the technology. But it's really interesting with travel, like the web cafes. Like, obviously it's all about, well, where's the next internet cafe so I can send emails and book my next train ticket and flight, right? And nowadays, like, it's all smartphones and Wi-Fi, which is super convenient, but it's different. It's different. So,
Exactly.
yeah, and here with the podcasting, right? Like the early days, that kind of morphing from radio into podcast on-demand type audio, but then all the support and the services and the connections and programs and things that are out there to help. It's kind of maybe then gone too far, I think if people are, well, frankly, lazy, I hate to put it maybe too pointed, but if that's the case, I'd like to think that maybe things will even out over time. The ones that aren't putting in enough effort, the audience will recognize that. It's like, well, I'm not interested in this show, it's not really standing out. So maybe that's what'll kind of, I suppose, find the ones who are meant to do it, who are meant to last, right, over time.
Totally. When you meet like a good interviewer like you, and I've met a handful, they stand out. So yeah, you have to believe that will sort itself out. But it is an interesting world now, right? Because anyone can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, this is great. There's, I'd love to dig more into travel. I mean, okay, this is one last question I was thinking. Like, one thing I've experienced as time goes by, like, how you go on, especially a big trip, a really big, memorable trip. It could be a month or maybe 6 months or a year, whatever it is. But, it's something that'll stick with you for the rest of your life. And then you get to that 1 year anniversary, right? A year later. And that could be maybe a year from when you came home, or maybe it's a year from when you first left or something like that. But I always would mark those dates like, a year ago today was when we arrived in India, that kind of thing. And then it's the second year. And then it's 5 years. And then it was 10 years. I found after the 10-year mark kind of ticked past, I mean, the memories are still there, but it just felt so distant,
Yeah.
It kind of bugs me because, like, the only way to really do anything about it, I think, is to go out there and keep traveling. But, we've got 2 young kids and we're busy lives here. So hopefully someday. But I struggle to, there's almost a bit of grief, I think, when it comes to that letting go of travel and just that phase of your life. So I know it's a deep question, but I mean, how do you How's that trip lived with you maybe for in the years since?
Oh, I love that question. I do think about this trip a lot. I think I've stopped noticing the anniversaries. It was in
Yeah.
March that we left. But what I will tell you is writing that book and editing it was hard. It was really, really hard because I was revisiting a relationship, I'm revisiting a time of beautiful freedom, although the aftermath of that, when you quit your job and you have to rebuild your life, is not pleasant. But I think when you like, yeah, sometimes it's painful. You know, when I was like editing this story and then thinking of the things that have happened since then, or you can go down that road going, what if I had just not come home, or what if we had gone, like, do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a part of me that I think I needed actually closure on that trip a little bit. And, I don't, I am contemplating doing an audiobook for it, but I'm afraid to actually read it because a part of me is like, I feel like I need to, it needs to be kind of done. And I've started writing a second book. And
Okay.
let me tell you, it's really refreshing to not be revisiting that trip any longer and to like write about new things and to see how maybe I have changed since that time. But trips are, because they're such a big part of my life. There's many trips actually that like when I think about them and the people that I was traveling with or whatever, it's sometimes it's beautiful, but it's also really sad. Like it's like you kind of grieve for that time in certain
Yeah.
ways. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's if you travel, these are like chapters of your life, you know, that bring back
Yeah.
good and bad memories.
I guess it's well, it's a metaphor for life in general. I mean, whether
Yeah.
it's relationships or when you're in university or any of those things, and you're never going to have them back. I often think, oh, I wish I was backpacking again, but I don't want to be bumming around in hostels again or any of that kind of stuff. And, I could drink maybe one beer, but it's not going to be five.
I know.
So those are things that could have only happened at that time. And if we ever travel again, well, here's my wife and I, we took our kids, this is almost 3 years ago already, but we took 3 months and spent 3 months, most of that in Portugal,
Cool.
which was a whole amazing thing. And just to see travel through the kids, right? And to see them. And, we have pictures over the house now, but it's still such a vivid memory for them. They were 5 and 7 at the time. So old enough to, remember and all that. But yeah, so I mean that's just it. Whenever we travel again, especially something of that scale, it's gonna be its own set of memories and that time and place in your life that you do that, right? And whatever the
Yeah.
kind of circumstances are.
Totally, totally. But thank
Interesting.
goodness we have these memories, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I find it interesting what pops into your head, like unexpectedly, out of the blue, you know, it could be from so many, like 2 decades ago or whatever, but it's just interesting that that still takes up space in your spirit, in your brain, in your
Yeah.
heart. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I find I dream about moments from time to time and
Yeah.
back there in Thailand.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, as you know, we wrap things up here with the quote unquote call to action. How can people reach out to you? Obviously, we'll put the links to your website, Instagram, and the book for sure. But can people, I think we know the answer, can people write you an email and basically say, hey, I'd like to do more than just share and like, and that stuff's great, but to actually engage and say, I really like to chat more? Is that a great way that people can connect with you?
Absolutely. I would love that. I love connecting with people and yeah, the likes and the whatever I think are wearing thin, aren't they? I think we need
Mm.
more. So I would love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Great. We'll put all that in the notes here. And hey, it's been great chatting.
Really great chatting with you, Ted. I feel like we could
Yeah.
talk all day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Cheers. Well, that was lots of fun. It was really neat to connect. It's a great thing having this podcast because people can reach out and as it kind of spread the reach, a bit farther from the roots of the multipod to tap into more communities and different places where we can find people. And that's how Melissa and I connected. It was just kind of a random thing, but I'm really glad it worked out to bring her on the show. And again, really quite inspiring to think that, yeah, those stories and the travels I did, like, I don't know if I'll do this, of course, but I could still get those things out. She really does inspire that it's never too late to share the things that we've created really, whether it's writing or maybe music or any kind of other arts and creative things, right? I mean, we can certainly revisit and put things back out there. You don't have to be so constrained by time. So let's make the most of it. So very inspiring. So links, of course, will be in the description here if you want to check out her book. Again, I highly recommend it. It was lots of fun, amazing stories. If you've been to any of these places, if you've done kind of the backpacker route of Southeast Asia, like my wife and I did, I mean, you'll really relate, going to a lot of those places and seeing it through her eyes, and you can reflect from your own experiences. If you haven't been, it'll inspire you to go. And either way, I mean, it's always this part of it is so neat is to hear how other people have experienced the same thing and how things have changed over time. She was there in 2010. We were there in 2012. Anyone who's been there since, I mean, you could tell we really are curious. What is Southeast Asia like these days? How easy is it to travel? What's it like going around with smartphones and you don't have to find Wi-Fi cafes and all the rest? Like, it's a different experience. It speaks back to the value of publishing stories in that space and time. So I'd love to hear what you think about her wonderful book. Feel free to reach out to me. You can absolutely contact Melissa as well, and we'll chat about it some more. And here's another thing too. If Melissa's guest appearance inspires you to come on the Multipod, share what you're up to, a project, a creative endeavor, right? We can chat about that. And it doesn't have to be something that just came out now or the last few months. It could have been something you did maybe 10 years ago. I mean, why not? Let's revisit it. Let's talk about how you've kind of reflected on that in the years since. That'll be a fun thing too. All within the wonderful realm of multipotentiality and the incredible, exciting, diverse, and really interesting lives that we all live. It's fun to share it here on the Multipod. So I look forward to hearing from you. I'll be back again in a couple of weeks with another episode.